Hi, and welcome to the Law Simplified. I'm Shaveen Bandaranayake. This is a practical guide to learning criminal law. In order to understand, appreciate, and apply criminal law, it is important to compare and contrast it to another area of law that we would encounter in our day-to-day lives more prevalently, which is contract law. Contract law, by and large, creates a one-to-one relationship where the outcome at best relates to compensation or putting the parties back into the place they were before entering into a contract, so to speak. Essentially, a contract is based on obligations that both parties mutually understand and set among themselves, the remedies of which are also that which the parties have agreed on. Criminal law, on the other hand, creates what we like to refer to as a one-to-many relationship. In other words, the rules or the laws are the obligations, so to speak, are set by the state or a government, and it's imposed without negotiation on every single citizen out there. The outcome too, unlike in contract law, is not of compensation or to put the parties back into the place they were, rather is to punish offenders and to deter any future breaches of the law. Now, having this context in mind, it is important to also understand the threshold in terms of proof when it comes to both contract law and criminal law. Contract law, since it deals with compensations and putting parties back, deals with a standard of proof which is a balance of probabilities. A court of law will hear both parties and determine on a balance whose version or whose claim seems more tenable than the other. Whereas in terms of criminal law, the standard of proof is that of beyond reasonable doubt. Even if there's a remote chance that the offender or the defendant did not do the purported crime, the sentence must either be reduced or he must be acquitted in its entirety. Now, having said that, this provides us with a unique opportunity of studying and preparing for criminal law, much different to that of what we would do in another subject such as contract law. By and large, criminal law can be broken into the fundamentals and the offenses. What I mean by this is, when it comes to defining, understanding, and applying offenses, it is important to understand its framework to begin with. Irrespective of the type of offense that you are studying or you're preparing for, the framework and its application will remain the same across the board. This is what we prepare for in terms of the fundamentals of criminal law. Essentially, we begin with the elements of an offense or the anatomy of an offense. No matter what offense that you're preparing for, each individual offense will have a physical element considered as the actus reus and a concurrent mental requisite which we call as the mens rea. Combinations of these two or thresholds of these two will not only determine the outcome of a particular situation but the sentencing as well as any defenses that are connected to it, which brings about the circumstances of how both the actus reus and the mens rea may be affected by circumstances that the parties go through. For instance, in automatism, we look at whether the actions of the defendant were in fact voluntary. Did he do it on purpose, essentially? Did he have control of his body when these outcomes took place? The goal here is to determine if the actions were voluntary or involuntary. If in fact it was the latter, there must be an unqualified acquittal in the case of sane automatism or a mandatory psychiatric admission in the case of insane automatism or insanity. On the other hand, a majority of defenses will congregate around the mens rea, determining if the requisite definition of the mens rea has been fulfilled or something below the par necessary. These defenses might be failure of proof, it might be justificatory or excusatory. Once we have identified the fundamentals and the framework of how an offense is manifested, then it's just about applying that framework to the different offenses of the law. Now, there are multiple offenses that you would go through in your syllabus and your course of study, but essentially, you can categorize these offenses into four main groups, namely homicide, non-fatal offenses against a person, property offenses, and sexual offenses. Each category deals with different offenses, and you would notice a set of offenses that congregate in each category. For example, homicide may refer to murder, voluntary manslaughter, and involuntary manslaughter in certain jurisdictions. Non-fatal offenses deal with things such as assault, battery, and aggravations of it, such as in terms of causing actual bodily harm in Section 47 of the Offences Against the Persons Act, or Section 20, which deals with wounding or grievous bodily harm, or in the case of Section 18, where it deals with grievous bodily harm with an intent to cause such or even killing. Property offenses deal, as the category itself may suggest, theft, burglary, and robbery, and even extends to non-tangible offenses or non-tangible property offenses such as fraud by false representation or abuse of position and a failure to disclose. Sexual offenses deal with offenses such as rape or sexual assault and assault by penetration. Coupling these two together, the framework or the fundamentals, and applying that to the offenses gives us an opportunity to discuss in depth each individual offense as it relates to the circumstances. Looking at the precepts of criminal law in this manner not only gives you a well-rounded understanding of the subject matter, but will also reflect well in the answer scripts that you provide your examiner. Right, this was a quick outline and a practical guide to learning criminal law. If you'd like to go in depth and understand the nuances of each individual offense, make sure you have a look at my online law school platform, which has comprehensive fast-track and masterclass courses for you to go through. You can access those through the links in the description below or the link that will appear on screen right now. But until the next time that we meet, have fun, stay safe, and as always, obey the law.